So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our areas of focus for our performance engagement program going forward. And you'll note that I use the term performance engagement, and that's to be inclusive of both our performance audit and our limited assurance review products, which I'll also talk specifically about. Then I'm going to draw your attention to some recent performance audits that may be relevant to your organisations. And lastly, a bit about opportunities for you to provide input into our forward topic selections. So our Act provides for us to look at matters of effectiveness, efficiency, economy and compliance with legislation. Historically, we've largely focused on looking at the effectiveness of public sector programs and service delivery, and these will continue to be a feature of our program going forward. Some such audits that we will be tabling soon are looking at things like clinical governance in the health sector, the solar homes rebate program, and where things are at with integrated transport planning, for example. In recent years, though, to better balance our program according to our mandate, we have introduced efficiency-focused audits. So far, we have undertaken a couple in the local government sector where we have endeavoured to benchmark performance by creating unique data sets, so the first in library services and the second in road maintenance. Looking forward, we intend to undertake more engagements focused on economy and efficiency, particularly to leverage the data already available to us through financial audit and together with our data analytics capability. We anticipate, for example, examining core and common areas of procurement across departments and public sector agencies with the aim of identifying potential cost savings. Within our program, we also consider compliance with legislation and what I like to refer to as foundational matters. And what I mean by that is elements of organisations that are integral to providing effective and efficient services. Things like resourcing models, staff performance development and management, cybersecurity, and capabilities in core government functions like developing business cases. And we have topics coming up in our forward audit program that look at each of those things, for example. The new trick we have at Vargo is assurance reviews. Our Act was changed in 2019 to allow us to do these. We had a service delivery gap where people would refer specific matters and issues to us that genuinely deserve some attention, but that didn't warrant the extended process and requirements of a performance audit, and so it meant they got missed. An assurance review allows us to do this work now, as this function, while resulting in meaningful findings and advice, doesn't require the depth of investigation and evidence collection that a performance audit entails. A good example is our recent report on grants to the Migrant Workers Centre that looked at a specific allegation of misuse of grant money for political campaigning. We have another coming up that examines the probity of some specific procurements. These type of limited assurance reviews are not included in our forward program, as rather than us planning them, we are responding to referrals brought to us. As such, we don't undertake consultation with agencies prior to commencing these reviews. But rest assured, we're not inundated with referrals. I know that there's been some questions asked about, will we get a lot of work coming our way in relation to these things? I would say I wouldn't anticipate that you'll be flooded with unplanned limited assurance reviews. And in recent times, we've been building up our data science team. The public sector is awash with data, and as such, it's incumbent on us to make the best use of it, particularly in our performance audit work. Often we're able to bring together or create data sets through our information access powers that other agencies can't, and so we can bring really unique insights that way. We did that, for example, in our audit of tram accessibility for people with mobility issues. By linking Public Transport Victoria and Yarra Trams data, we were able to clearly show the impact on people of not having sufficient access to level access trams and platforms. We can also undertake valuable data studies through our limited assurance review function. One example of this we are currently working on looks at the performance of major capital projects. We've undertaken a survey covering time, cost and other data for all current infrastructure projects worth over 100 million, and will present this data in an explorable dashboard with an accompanying report outlining key findings. You can see that we could also undertake analysis of existing data sets across government to generate insights under this function, and that is something we will look at doing more of going forward. Where we use the limited assurance review function for this kind of work going forward, agencies will be consulted and informed ahead of those reviews starting. We're also working to make data that is already publicly available, but perhaps a bit hidden or hard to use, much more accessible. And this is shown in our dashboards outlining major projects as published in the budget papers, and service delivery performance data also as published in the budget papers. We've had a great response to these dashboards, which I think really shows the desire that is out there for clear and accessible data about public service activity, so there'll be more of that to come. And given we are presenting more interactive data and that people predominantly consume our reports and data online, we're investing in training our staff in user experience design and looking at how we can convert our print style publications to digital stories going forward. It's worth taking this opportunity to also draw your attention to a few recent audit reports that you might find interesting. The first is certainly relevant for all government agencies in that it looks at service delivery performance measures in the budget papers. We found a range of issues with the design of those measures that impair their usefulness in understanding performance. The report goes through the common pitfalls in detail, so it serves as a useful tool for you to consider the appropriateness of the performance measures within your own organisations and how not the organisations might improve them if needed. Next is an audit that undertook a detailed look at what went wrong with a major IT project in the Department of Justice and Community Safety for processing fines. We intended this report to serve as a lessons learnt resource, given the challenge that major ICT projects present. So I recommend that report to you to consider when your own organisations are undertaking such projects. The third is our audit on sexual harassment in local government. I note that we also did a similar audit in public sector departments in November 2019. Both reports should serve as useful resources in considering your own organisation's policies, practices and complaint processes. Certainly we used the first audit ourselves to self-assess against it as we went through the audit, and we subsequently identified improvements we have made since. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't already, to consider those reports. I'd suggest that it's always worth checking out our reports as they table, even if on the face of it the subject matter seems outside your sector, as there are often transferable learnings that are relevant for many types of agencies. And you can subscribe through our website also so that you receive all the new reports into your inbox as they table. So I'd also like to make you aware of our process for selecting topics for performance engagements. In choosing our performance audit topics, we go through a pretty thoughtful and detailed process. We rate topics based on their economic, social and environmental significance and risk. We think about how us looking at that topic might bring unique insights given our specific powers. We think about our stakeholders and what the topic might mean to them, and we think about how best to provide oversight across a very broad range of public sector activities. And to come up with those topics, we consider and we undertake a very active process of intelligence gathering. And as part of that, we encourage and consider topics suggested to us, both for performance audits and limited assurance reviews. So one of the things I want to leave you with today is a reminder that you can participate in this process. You just need to drop us a line through our website or reach out to myself or your relevant performance audit sector director, or pass a message through a financial audit director as well. And if you want to see our forward audit program, it's available on our website and covers the next 3 years, and we'll publish our 21-22 plan next month, so that will be the latest version. So now's the opportunity for any questions in relation to the performance engagement program.
Thanks, Renee. I haven't got any new questions come up from your presentation, so obviously you've fully and effectively communicated and efficiently communicated what's going on in performance audit. Now, I mean, I'm aware, of course, that the touch points with audit committees and performance audit are few and far between, given the timing of audit committee meetings and the fact that we deal on an ongoing basis with the executive. We were, in fact, discussing with one audit committee chair whether or not they could be briefed progressively on our audits, and it's a little problematic for us, given the confidentiality provisions of the Act. But we really want to engage, I think, more and more with audit committees, and as we develop this new approach to annual planning, we'll seek to put in some touch points where we can talk to audit committees directly about their views on topics. So now I'm seeing there's 4 new topics, 4 new questions have come in. We've given people some thinking time. So now I've got some questions back for you, Renee. So first question is, can you work with other jurisdictions to look at things with a shared responsibility, for example, the vaccination rollout?
Unfortunately, no. So our Act doesn't allow us to do joint auditing with the Commonwealth Auditor-General, for example. So no, that is a bit of a gap.
Yep, that's correct. I'll support that. I mean, there's a provision in our Act that talks about being able to share information, but we're specifically excluded from doing a joint audit. So the best we could possibly do would be coordinate between ourselves and kind of share lines of inquiry and see if we can get everyone looking at the same issue from the different angles, but that's about as far as we can go. How does one request a performance audit, or is that even possible, Renee?
Of course it's possible. So like I talked about with the annual planning process, you can write to us, you can email us, you can give me a call. I'm sure you could give Andrew a call, or you could contact, as I said, if you have a contact, either a financial audit or performance audit director, and let us know what you think the topic is that we should be looking at. And we keep all of those referrals, we consider them as part of our annual planning process, and we also make sure that we close the loop and we feed back to you how we have considered that topic suggestion and what we're going to be doing with it if we're going to take that topic up.
Excellent, thanks. I can probably take the next 4. So there's an observation from an audit committee, you know, should we be balancing cost-effective procurement practices to allow for improved local engagement and give stronger weighting to this? I think that's probably a policy question for government. You know, cost-effective can be balanced against economic objectives. So I'm sure that could be done. It would just be need to be clearly articulated, and people would have to understand, if you like, the extra costs. You know, clearly now with procurement strategies, significant state procurements, there's this local content rule. Now, one could argue that, you know, that may mean you pay more for a resource, but there's obviously countervailing considerations in terms of the Victorian economy and the broader public value that using local providers brings to Victoria and to the Victorian community. Another question, it's always a question that arises, who guards the guards? Who audits the auditors? It says under my act that we'll be subject to performance audit at least once every 4 years. I can confirm we have done that. That audit was done earlier, late last year, and that report was tabled in the Parliament by the Public Accounts and Estimates Committee. So you're able to access that. I've also put that report up on our website, and because we have a, you know, in terms of our leader by example agenda, I have a very pro-disclosure, pro-transparency approach. So we immediately put that report up on the website with the recommendations, and we'll be updating the status of our recommendations at least every 6 months. So you'll be able to see what we're doing in response to the recommendations. And if you don't want to read it, too long didn't read, is that the new thing, tl.dr? I can give you the overall conclusion was that we're operating efficiently and effectively and in compliance with laws and regulations, so that was a nice thing. Do performance audits come at an additional cost to the organisation? Well, they absolutely come at a cost to the organisation. There's no doubt about that. The organisation needs to marshal its resources, and I felt that when we had our 4 yearly performance audit. So there's no doubt that there's a cost to the organisation. It's very hard for us to get a sense of how much it costs, but what we try to do is minimise the cost to the organisation. That's why we try to have very well specified processes and procedures that we follow, and try to have an ongoing engagement both in our financial and our performance audit. It's recognised that it's a cost, but I guess we also recognise that as public sector entities, there is this need for public accountability and transparency. That's why Auditors-General exist. So as long as the cost to the organisation is not excessive, I think we would recognise that there is always a cost.